Ever get that feeling like there's this whole hidden reason, like a whole science, behind why you buy certain
Oh,
things?
absolutely.
Well, today we're going deep, deep into the psychology of shopping.
Sounds interesting.
And you might be surprised to hear the jumping off point for all this is actually, well, it's a set of 25 conversation questions, ones that are meant for people learning English.
Really?
Yeah. And who knew that these basic questions, like the ones you'd use in a language class, could actually unlock so much about how all of us shop?
I'm intrigued. So where do we start with these
Well,
questions?
first, let me introduce myself. I'm the host of this deep dive. And with me, as always, we have an expert to help us unpack it all.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to dig into this. It's fascinating how these questions, designed for language practice can actually give us a peek into, what makes us tick as shoppers. Like why are we drawn to certain products? Why do we prefer certain stores? It's like having a secret code to crack the consumer mind.
Okay, so I guess our mission today is to like kind of decode some of those hidden patterns, those hidden reasons, and maybe help our listeners become just a little bit more aware when they're shopping.
Definitely.
Maybe even save a little money in the process.
Always a good thing.
So let's jump right in. The first thing these questions got me thinking about is like that age-old debate, online versus in-store shopping. It's question 1 and 2 in this set, actually. Like, what do you prefer and why? Personally, I love the convenience of online shopping. I mean, who doesn't? But sometimes, don't you miss that feeling of like actually holding something, seeing it in person before
Yes,
you buy it?
100%. You're hitting on something really important there, that sensory experience.
Hmm.
Brick and mortar stores, they engage all our senses, sight, touch, even smell,
Mm,
and that can lead to, well, sometimes it can lead to more thoughtful purchases because you're not just clicking a button, you're actually experiencing the product.
that's true.
But at the same time, those stores are, let's be honest, they're designed to get you to make impulse buys. Think about it. The way things are displayed, those delicious smells wafting through the air, those tempting little treats right at the checkout.
Oh, yeah, the end caps. Like I'm walking through the checkout line. I'm like, oh, I needed that.
Exactly.
But online shopping has its own tricks too, right? We feel like it really plays into that like instant gratification thing we all have. No lines, no crowds, just click, click, buy.
It's almost too easy sometimes.
Right?
Right.
Yes, it is.
And that's exactly the double-edged sword of it. It's amazing for finding deals, getting what you need quickly, but it also makes it that much easier to overspend. Especially, when you add in targeted ads, those limited time offers, all that creates this sense of urgency.
Oh, yeah, totally. And speaking of overspending, that actually leads right into another thing that these conversation questions really made me think about. Budgeting and that dreaded buyer's remorse. They had questions in there about tracking your expenses and dealing with the regret after you've, maybe splurged on something you didn't need.
Right.
We've all been there, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the key here is to figure out what triggers those impulse purchases. Ask yourself, do you tend to shop when you're stressed, when you're bored, when you're feeling down? Maybe you're easily swayed by those flashy sales or you get caught up in the hype of the newest product.
Oh, the fear of missing out, the FOMO.
Exactly. A good starting point, and this might sound a little basic, but it's really helpful. Creating a realistic budget. Have you ever tried a budgeting method like the 50-30-20 rule?
I haven't, no. Tell me about it.
It basically helps you divide up your income, 50% for those essential needs, 30% for your wants, and then 20% goes into savings. So you're actually, allocating for those things you really want, but you're also making sure you're taking care of the essentials and saving for the future.
That's a really good tip. I think I'm going to try that. So we've talked about kind of our personal habits, but let's talk about I guess, the elephant in the room, which is sales and marketing. Some of these conversation questions really dug into this, asking about your favorite stores, how advertising impacts you, even what you think about Black Friday. Makes you wonder how much of our shopping is actually driven by our needs versus like clever marketing strategies.
Right. It really makes you think, doesn't it? I mean, marketing, it's a whole science in itself, and they're really good at what they do. They often tap into our emotions, and one of their favorite strategies is called scarcity marketing. That's where they create that fear of missing out feeling.
Oh, I hate.
Like think about Black Friday, right?
Oh, yeah.
Limited quantities, doorbuster deals, those countdown clocks. It's all designed to make you think you have to buy it right now or you'll
Yeah.
miss out.
It's so true.
And then on top of that, you've got social influence, especially online. Product reviews, influencer endorsements, even just seeing what your friends are buying. It can all subtly influence our choices without us even realizing it.
It's like we're just surrounded by messages telling us to buy all the time. And that actually brings us to a really important point that some of these conversation questions touch on, which is the environmental impact of all this shopping. There are a couple questions that really got me thinking about, how do our shopping habits affect the planet? And do we prefer buying new stuff or maybe seeking out used items? It's kind of it's a sobering reminder that our choices, they have consequences, not just on our wallets.
Absolutely. Especially with the rise of fast fashion, churning out those trendy clothes so quickly at those super low prices, it comes at a cost, a huge environmental cost. But the good news is there's a growing movement towards what's called conscious consumerism. People are becoming more aware of these issues, and they're looking for alternative ways to shop. Things like thrifting, buying secondhand, supporting brands that are really making an effort to be sustainable. And, it's not just about the planet. It can be a great way to save money, and you can find some truly unique items that way, things you just wouldn't find anywhere else.
Absolutely. There's a sense of, one of a kindness to that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've talked about like our individual shopping habits, but there's also the social side of shopping. And some of these conversation questions touch on that too, like do you like to shop alone or do you prefer to shop with friends? And how do you deal with those like pushy salespeople? I personally love going shopping with friends, but I have to admit sometimes their opinions sway me and I end up buying things that, if I was by myself, I don't know if I would have.
Oh, I'm the same way. It's so true. Shopping with others can be a lot of fun, but it definitely can lead to that social pressure
Yeah.
and, those impulse purchases. So learning to recognize those external influences, whether it's your friend's opinion or a salesperson's really good pitch, that's a skill, I think.
Yeah.
It's an important skill for any shopper because at the end of the day, you have the power to make your own choices based on what you need, based on what you value.
So after this whole deep dive into, the ins and outs of shopping psychology, what would you say is the most important thing for our listeners to take away from today?
Well, I think we've seen that understanding what motivates us, those hidden influences of marketing and, the importance of making ethical choices, those are all key to becoming more mindful consumers. It's a journey, It's not like you wake up one day and you've got it all figured
It's a
out.
process.
It's a process, exactly. And it all starts with awareness.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit of self-reflection. So here's a final question for everyone listening. It's inspired by one of those conversation starter questions. What one change could you make to your shopping habits starting today? Maybe to save a little money, to be a little more ethical, or even just to find more joy in the whole process of shopping.
That's a great question to think about.
Something to ponder.
Absolutely.